Nurse Lily had worked at Riverside Hospital for 6 years. She was known for her gentle hands, kind heart, and tireless dedication. Every patient she touched seemed to feel better just by her presence. But all of that didn't matter the moment Dr. Brennan walked into the hospital's administration 2 months ago. Dr. Brennan was a high-profile surgeon from New York, transferred after a scandal no one dared to speak about. He was tall, cold, and walked through the hospital like he owned every soul in it. To the staff, he was untouchable. To the nurses, he was a daily storm. Lily, however, wasn't afraid of him. One night during the late shift, an elderly patient in critical condition started crashing. Lily ran into the operating room calling for help. She tried to stabilize the patient while paging Dr. Brennan, who was on call. When he finally stormed in, he didn't look concerned about the patient. He looked furious at Lily. "You don't give orders here," he shouted. "I wasn't giving orders. I was trying to save a life." Lily shot back in a flash of rage. Dr. Brennan shoved a tray off the counter, and when Lily tried to speak again, he struck her across the face with the back of his hand. The room went dead silent. Two junior nurses gasped. One male nurse stepped forward, but Lily raised her hand to stop him. Dr. Brennan hissed, "You're fired. Get out of my hospital." Tears welled in her eyes, but she stood tall. She walked out without saying a word, her cheek red and her dignity intact. That night, the nurses' station was silent. Phones rang, alarms beeped, but the warmth of Lily's presence was gone. Whispers spread across departments, but no one knew what to do. Reporting Dr. Brennan could risk everyone's jobs. But what none of them knew was that the next morning, a storm would hit that would turn the hospital upside down, starting with the sound of heavy boots on polished tile. The next morning began like any other until a black SUV pulled up to the hospital entrance. Out stepped Colonel James Walters, a decorated military officer in full uniform, his chest lined with medals and ribbons. Behind him, two men in suits followed closely, their expressions unreadable. The receptionist looked up, startled. "Can I help you, sir? I'm here to see Nurse Lily Reynolds." Colonel Walters said, his voice calm but commanding. "I'm sorry, sir, but Nurse Lily was let go yesterday." His jaw clenched. "By who?" Before she could answer, the colonel was already walking through the halls like he'd memorized the place. Staff paused, patients stared, and whispers rose behind him like wind through leaves. At the nurses' station, Dr. Brennan was sipping coffee and barking at a new intern. The moment he turned and saw the uniformed man approaching, his face stiffened. "May I help you?" Dr. Brennan asked, trying to maintain composure. Colonel Walters stood still. "I'm here about Nurse Reynolds." "She's no longer employed here," Brennan said flatly. "There's no need for further discussion." "Oh, I think there is," the colonel replied, producing a letter from his coat. "Nurse Lily Reynolds is under the protection of the United States Army Medical Corps. She served during 3 tours overseas, including under my command. Any assault against her is a federal matter." Brennan's smirk faltered. Around them, staff began to gather. The silence was loud. "You hit her, in front of witnesses, then fired her without due process." The colonel continued, "I have statements, video footage, and this," he held up a second document, "is a formal request to suspend you pending investigation." "Wait, what?" Brennan stuttered. "You have 5 minutes to vacate this hospital. I suggest you use them wisely." The entire room was frozen. Brennan's hand trembled as he set his coffee down. For the first time, the untouchable man looked very small, and then came the sound applause. Soft at first, then growing. Nurses, orderlies, even patients. Lily hadn't even returned yet, but her justice had begun. Lily sat at her kitchen table, hands wrapped around a warm cup of tea. Her cheek still bore the faint bruise from the night before, but her spirit hadn't cracked. She hadn't expected justice, not in a world where people like Dr. Brennan always seemed to walk free. Then came the knock. She opened the door slowly, and there stood Colonel Walters. His presence filled the doorway, but his eyes softened the moment he saw her. "Sir," she asked, stunned. He smiled gently. "Permission to enter." She stepped aside, nodding. Behind him walked 2 men in plain suits, who waited quietly in the hallway as the colonel sat at her kitchen table like old friends catching up. "I heard what happened," he said, voice low. And I couldn't sit back. Lily blinked fast. How did you even know I make it a point to follow the lives of those who served with me? You saved lives under fire, Lily. You worked through nights when even doctors gave up. No one, especially not some arrogant, power-drunk surgeon, gets to lay a hand on you. Tears welled in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the kind of gratitude that fills the chest until it aches. I don't even know what to say, she whispered. You don't need to say anything. I've already said enough to the board, the hospital's legal team, and a few media contacts. He slid a file toward her. Here's your reinstatement letter, full back pay, and an offer to head the new emergency nurse training program. She stared at the folder, then back at him. Why are you doing this? Because you matter, and because everyone in that hospital needed to be reminded what integrity looks like. Meanwhile, back at Riverside, news of Brennan's suspension had exploded across the hospital. His name was scrubbed from the staff list. Investigators had taken over his office. And then, just before noon, the main doors opened and Lily walked in. The moment she stepped onto the floor, the room erupted. Applause, cheers, even a few tears. Nurses hugged her. Doctors shook her hand. Some patients clapped from their beds. She was back, and everything had changed. In the days that followed, the hospital felt like a new place. The fear that had shadowed the halls under Dr. Brennan's presence was gone. Staff smiled more. Conversations flowed. Even patients noticed the shift. And at the heart of it all was Lily. She wasn't just back, she was leading her new role, put her in charge of mentoring young nurses, training them not just in medical skill, but in compassion, confidence, and courage. Every time she stepped into a room, people paid attention, not because she demanded respect, but because she had earned it one afternoon while walking through the recovery wing. Lily passed the very room where the incident had taken place. The tray had been replaced, the floor cleaned, but the memory was etched deep. Standing silently by the window, she heard a voice behind her. You changed this place. She turned. It was Dr. Harmon, a senior physician who'd always kept his distance. We were all scared, even me. But you reminded us that silence helps no one. Lily smiled softly. I didn't do it alone. No, he nodded, but you were the spark. Later that week, the hospital board held a staff-wide meeting. For the first time ever, nurses were invited to speak openly. Lily was asked to lead the discussion. She stood at the podium, eyes scanning the crowd. Doctors, janitors, interns, surgeons, aides, I was taught to stay quiet. She began to follow orders, to avoid making waves. But staying silent doesn't save lives. It enables harm. The room was still, every word soaking deep. Healthcare isn't just about medicine, it's about humanity. And if we're not protecting each other, then we're failing the very people who count on us. Thunderous applause followed. For once, nurses felt seen, valued, empowered. Back at her locker that evening, Lily found a folded note. No name, just a simple line written in careful script. Thank you for reminding us how to stand. She smiled, tucked it in her pocket, and walked out into the setting sun. Her face was calm, her heart steady. She had come back stronger. And now Riverside wasn't just a hospital, it was a place where courage could breathe.